For 27 years, Melinda Gates stood beside one of the richest men in the world. She smiled in photos, ran their foundation, and raised 3 children. But in 2021, she walked away from it all. The divorce shocked everyone. The settlement was worth $76 billion. People whispered about Bill's mistakes, but Melinda stayed quiet. Then, in 2025, at 61, she finally spoke. She revealed a meeting in 2013 that made her sick. She talked about lies that kept piling up, and she admitted the real reason she left. What she said changed everything people thought they knew. Melinda Ann French came into the world on August 15, 1964, in Dallas, and her childhood unfolded in a house where discipline and curiosity lived side by side. She was the second of 4 children, and her father worked as an aerospace engineer who helped send Americans to the moon during the Apollo years. Her mother stayed home and shaped the rhythm of the family with routines, values, and expectations that felt steady and warm. Their neighborhood was comfortable, never extravagant, and her father knew that raising 4 children meant planning ahead. So, in the late 1970s, he started a rental property business to make sure every one of them could go to college. This turned into a family effort, and Melinda found herself with a paintbrush in her hand by the time she was 10. Weekends meant painting walls, scrubbing floors, and learning small repairs. Soon, she began to notice how responsibility felt lighter when everyone shared the load, and that lesson sank deep. As the business grew, so did the tasks. By 12, she was doing simple bookkeeping, balancing numbers that most kids her age had never seen. The idea of working for something bigger than herself became familiar. Each apartment she helped clean meant tuition saved later. Each record she managed showed her how careful planning created opportunities. Those early years shaped her sense of discipline without anyone lecturing her. She understood independence long before she understood the word itself, and that foundation kept building as she stepped into her early teens. Around that same time, something unexpected appeared in the house. Her father brought home an Apple II computer, released in 1977, and it opened a door she did not know existed. At 14, she began using it to keep track of rental records, and the slow, blinking cursor pulled her in. She taught herself BASIC, typing commands over and over until simple programs responded to her ideas. Very few girls touched coding then, and yet she found it comforting. The machine did not care about age or gender. It cared only about logic. She loved that. Hours passed while she wrote tiny scripts that solved small problems in the rental business. She started to feel that technology could help make sense of the world, and that feeling stayed with her. Her curiosity grew even stronger when she entered Ursuline Academy in 1978. The school challenged every student, and Melinda liked that pressure. She worked hard in every subject, especially math and science, and the teachers noticed her seriousness. Ursuline was one of the first schools in Texas to bring computers into classrooms, and that decision changed her path. She found computer science classes both exciting and intimidating, and every project pushed her deeper into the field she already loved. When she graduated in 1982 as valedictorian, she carried with her not just top grades but a steady confidence that technology could shape the future. Her time there made something clear. She wanted to be part of that future. Not long after, she took her first paid job, tutoring younger students in math and programming. It was the early 1980s, and very few girls taught coding to anyone. Yet she stood in front of struggling students and explained lines of basic code for $5 an hour. It was good money for a teenager, but more importantly, she learned how much she enjoyed helping others understand difficult things. She noticed how teaching sharpened her own thinking, and the confidence she gained from those sessions stayed with her. When she arrived at Duke University in 1982, all those early lessons followed her. She stepped into classrooms where she was often one of the only women studying computer science, and the energy felt different. Male students shouted answers without hesitation, and she felt the shift instantly. Her high school experience had been encouraging and balanced, but this environment sometimes felt overwhelming. In one of her first CS classes, the professor used a programming language she had never seen before. That moment made her doubt herself, but the doubt did not last. She pushed through. She studied harder. She learned faster. By 1986, she completed her BS in computer science and economics, and by 1987, she had her MBA at just 23. She worked her way through those years with determination, later serving as a Duke Board trustee from 1996 to 2003. Those 5 years at Duke taught her how to compete, how to adapt, and how to trust her own mind. Her internships also strengthened her path. She spent 2 summers at IBM, learning how large teams worked and how software came together piece by piece. The work was demanding, but she absorbed everything she could. These internships gave her real technical experience at a time when women were rarely seen in such roles. She learned multimedia tools, coding strategies, and the importance of teamwork. Living cheaply in dorms during those summers, she found herself imagining where this world of technology could take her. She grew sharper, more confident, and more curious about the future she wanted. Then came a crossroads. After her second IBM internship, she received a job offer. It seemed like the safe choice. The company was huge. The career path looked stable. But during her final interview, her hiring manager did something unusual. The manager told her to think about Microsoft, which was still a smaller company with big dreams. That advice surprised her and even scared her a little. Starting over in Seattle did not feel simple. Yet she listened. She wanted growth, not comfort. So in 1987, she turned down IBM and joined Microsoft instead. Looking back, she said it was the decision that changed everything. She arrived at Microsoft in August 1987 as a 23-year-old product manager with a fresh MBA and a quiet determination to contribute something meaningful. Her early work revolved around multimedia products, which were still new territory in technology. One of her first major projects was Cinemania, a movie guide built on CD-ROM that launched in 1992. It blended movies, trivia, cast details, and interactive features in a way most people had never seen. The project sold more than 200,000 copies in its first year and showed that digital entertainment could be both practical and fun. That success helped her find her place inside the company. Not long after, she led the team that created Encarta in 1993. Encarta became one of the most important digital encyclopedias of its time. It combined text, photos, audio clips, and video into a single product, and by 1995, it had sold over 1 million copies. Families used it for homework, schools adopted it, computers around the world carried it, and she guided every stage of the process, from design to content to the way users interacted with it. Encarta showed her how powerful well-executed technology could be. Alongside these projects, she managed products like Publisher, Bob, Money, Works, and multimedia parts of Word. Each project came with its own challenges. Microsoft Bob became her most difficult one. Bob tried to make computers friendlier by using a virtual house interface, but the hardware of the time was not ready for it. The program struggled and was discontinued, yet she carried valuable lessons from the experience. Failure did not diminish her. If anything, it made her stronger and more willing to try bold ideas. By the early 1990s, she had become general manager of information products, guiding teams of more than 100 people and leading innovations that pushed Microsoft's multimedia success to nearly 90% market share. Her leadership helped the company become a global force. Her decisions shaped software used in homes across the world, and her reputation grew quietly but steadily. In 1996, she helped pioneer Expedia, a project that transformed how people booked travel. Real-time flight prices, online reservations, and a user-friendly interface made it one of the fastest-growing digital travel services of the era. By 1998, it generated $250 million in bookings. By 2002, it brought in more than $590 million in revenue and employed over 400 people. The company grew faster than most expected, and her guidance played a central role in that rise. During these same years, she also dealt with the pressure of Microsoft's antitrust battles in the 1990s. The Department of Justice investigated the company for monopolistic practices, and every division felt the weight of scrutiny. Her team focused on product quality and user experience while navigating those challenges, and Microsoft held its position as the leading software company despite constant legal tension. Behind all the work, something personal was unfolding quietly. In 1987, she and Bill Gates began dating, but they kept the relationship secret because of workplace rules. They spent 3 years building a partnership that was both personal and intellectual. On January 1, 1994, they married on the island of Lanai in Hawaii in a small ceremony with only about 20 guests. She entered that marriage with a clear sense of equality. She negotiated a strong prenup that ensured she would be an equal partner, and the quiet confidence behind that choice revealed the same independence she had carried since childhood. Melinda French walked into Microsoft in 1987 as a young product manager who loved solving problems more than being noticed. She started on small projects, then moved quickly into bigger ones like Microsoft Bob, Encarta, and Word. By 1994, she was running a huge group as General Manager of Information Products, leading more than 1,700 people and shaping the consumer side of Microsoft that millions of families used at home. During this same period, she married Bill Gates, who was already famous as Microsoft's chief executive, yet inside the company she kept her badge, her office, and her workload. People who worked with her say her promotions were earned in rooms where no one cared about her last name, only if the product shipped and the work got done. She stayed in that pressure cooker through her first pregnancy, still running teams and products, while her personal life changed. By 1996, she was 32 and standing at a crossroads. She could keep climbing inside one of the most competitive companies in the world, or she could walk away and raise her children. She chose to leave. That decision closed a 9-year chapter in which she had helped shape Microsoft's culture on the consumer side, and opened a very different one that would slowly pull her out of corporate life and into philanthropy. Right before she left, she helped push one last big project over the line. In 1996, Melinda played a senior role as Expedia grew from an internal idea into a real business. Richard Barton led the day-to-day team out of Microsoft's Redmond campus, but Melinda was one of the executives guiding strategy, backing the idea that people would someday book their travel online. Microsoft poured money into Expedia, then spun it out in 1999 as a separate public company so it could breathe on its own, recruit talent with stock options, and move faster. Years later, by 2025, Expedia Group would sit at a market value of about $19.39 billion, with $13.7 billion in revenue for 2024 and more than $110.9 billion in gross bookings. The travel site that began as a side project inside Microsoft had become a global giant, and Melinda's early bets helped it outrun rivals like Travelocity. Even as she succeeded, the air inside Microsoft never felt easy. Melinda later described the culture as loud, sharp, and competitive in a way that often pushed women to the edge. At one point, early in her career there, She almost quit because the meetings felt more like arguments than conversations. Still, her calm style and technical skill kept her moving upward. Over time, she began quietly mentoring women, recruiting talent, and modeling a softer, more collaborative way of leading in a place many employees saw as a classic male-heavy environment. She also saw, from the inside, how powerful men behaved at work, including Bill's early attention to some female staff members. And that tension sat with her for years as she tried to align her values with the world she lived in each day. By the time she left in 1996, her stock options had turned her into a very wealthy woman. Microsoft's share price had soared, and even before there was a formal foundation, Melinda had the means to live any way she wanted. Instead of only building personal wealth, she began shifting stock into a different kind of future. Over the next years, she and Bill moved billions of dollars in Microsoft shares into what would become the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. By the early 2000s, the couple had already donated around $20 billion to the foundation, turning it into the largest philanthropic organization of its kind. Her own net worth would still stand in the tens of billions, around $17.4 billion by 2025. But now, most of her energy flowed into using that money for something beyond profit, especially through a firm she later created called Pivotal Ventures, which focused on women and families. The philanthropic story did not start in one big burst. It grew in steps. In 1994, they formed the William H. Gates Foundation, a modest family effort at first, centered on health and education. Then there was the Gates Library Foundation and the Gates Learning Foundation. In August 1999, they merged all of these into a single structure and gave it both of their names. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation launched with an endowment of about $17 billion by the end of 1999, mostly in Microsoft stock. In January 2000, Bill added another $5 billion, lifting the endowment to roughly $22 billion. With that size, the foundation was suddenly large enough to reshape entire systems, not just fund scattered projects. Even before most people were online, Melinda was already thinking about who would be left out. In the mid-1990s, she and Microsoft backed an effort called Libraries Online. Between 1995 and 1997, they gave around $17 million in software and support to about 200 libraries, putting computers and internet access into public spaces where anyone could walk in and learn. Patty Stonecipher, who later led the foundation, helped run this work. By 2000, more than 10,000 libraries in the United States had received some form of support. For many low-income families, students, and seniors, those machines were their first window into the digital world, and that early push helped shape the foundation's belief that access to technology is a kind of basic infrastructure. As the new century opened, the foundation widened its focus. They funded scholarships for minority students and supported education changes in the Pacific Northwest, giving more than $100 million in grants by 1999 alone. One key gift was a $10 million scholarship program at the University of Washington in honor of Bill's mother, Mary Gates. These were small numbers compared to what would come later, but they showed a pattern. Melinda believed in education as a lever, and the foundation invested in new teaching models, training for teachers, and experiments aimed at improving public schools for students who had been left behind. Then Africa changed her. On a trip in the late 1990s, Melinda walked through clinics and villages in countries like Zambia and Tanzania and saw what statistics could not fully explain. Families losing children to malaria and other preventable diseases. Mothers walking hours to get basic care. She came back convinced that global health had to sit at the center of their giving. This experience pushed the foundation to fund large vaccination campaigns, maternal health programs, and family planning, especially in the places where child mortality was highest. By 2000, they had already committed hundreds of millions of dollars to these efforts, and over time, those decisions would save millions of lives. Between 2000 and 2015, the foundation grew into a kind of empire. Starting with that $5 billion addition in 1999 and more than $106 million in 2000, plus later injections of stock, especially from Warren Buffett's $30 billion pledge in 2006, the endowment rose above $50 billion by 2015. The foundation spent about $53.8 billion on global health, education, and development in that period. Melinda chaired 5 major divisions and helped steer partnerships with governments and other donors. In the world of philanthropy, the way they operated, with metrics, reports, and a business-style approach, set new expectations for scale and transparency. One of the clearest examples of their impact came in the fight against polio. Working with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the foundation helped vaccinate more than 100 million children across Pakistan, India, and other countries between 2000 and 2015. In Pakistan, yearly polio cases fell by more than 90% from 1994 to 2015, including an 80% drop in a single year, from 306 cases in 2014 down to 54 in 2015. In India, polio was declared eradicated in 2014. The foundation poured hundreds of millions of dollars into vaccines, surveillance, and ground-level work that got vaccinators into remote areas and conflict zones. For countless families, that meant children who would never face paralysis from a disease that had once seemed impossible to defeat. Melinda also made women's health central to the story. From 2009 to 2015, she backed more than $1 billion in contraception programs across Africa and Asia. In Kenya, contraceptive use among married women climbed from around 46% in 2009 to about 58% by 2015, beating government targets. Through the Urban Reproductive Health Initiative and similar projects, the foundation helped expand access to modern methods in poor city neighborhoods, a shift that researchers estimate led to about 80 million fewer unintended pregnancies and 111,000 fewer maternal deaths across Africa. At the same time, Melinda spoke out in the United States about paid family leave and policies that would make it easier for women to stay in the workforce without sacrificing their health. Her work did not go unnoticed. In 2016, she and Bill received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama, the highest civilian honor in the United States, in recognition of roughly $36 billion in grants that had been made since 2000. Around the same period, France awarded her the Legion of Honor for her contribution to global health and development. Those medals were symbolic, but they confirmed something real. A woman who had once quietly shipped software from a cubicle was now known around the world as one of the most influential figures in modern philanthropy. At the same time, Melinda was building something separate from the foundation. In 2015, she created Pivotal Ventures, a company designed to invest in ideas and organizations that would speed up progress for women and girls. Pivotal backed projects in politics, mental health, caregiving, economic security, and women in technology and media. By 2025, it had put hundreds of millions of dollars into more than 150 organizations, including startups like Papa, which connects college students with older adults who need support, and many efforts to shift the way the economy values the work women do. Her guiding idea was simple. If more women controlled more resources and power, the world would change faster. While her public work grew, her private life was becoming more complicated. In 2017, a woman who worked at a bike shop, partly owned by a firm tied to the Gates family, accused Bill's longtime money manager, Michael Larson, of sexual harassment. Bill initially tried to resolve the matter quietly, but Melinda pushed for an outside investigation by an independent law firm. The woman signed a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement, yet Melinda was not satisfied. She pressed for a deeper look at the culture of Cascade Investments, the secretive firm that handled Bill's fortune. Larson denied any wrongdoing, but the episode added tension to a marriage already under strain and marked a shift in how Melinda approached problems. Instead of quietly absorbing them, she demanded public accountability. Then, in 2019, Microsoft's own board began investigating Bill. A female engineer alleged that she had been involved in a long relationship with him that started in 2000, while he was still chairman. The board hired outside lawyers, and Microsoft later confirmed that Bill had sought a relationship with the employee. While Bill said he left the board in March 2020 to focus on philanthropy, people close to the situation said the investigation played a major role in that decision. The story emerged during the height of the Me Too movement and chipped away at the public image of the careful, disciplined engineer. It also deepened the emotional storm inside Melinda's life, where work, marriage, and reputation had always been tightly linked. Another source of pain was Bill's connection with Jeffrey Epstein. In September 2013, Melinda accompanied Bill to Epstein's townhouse in New York. On the same day, they received a public service award at the Pierre Hotel. She later said the visit made her feel sick. She described Epstein as evil personified and regretted ever walking through his door. When she learned that Bill continued to meet with Epstein after that, she became furious and told him clearly that this relationship was a serious sore spot. Bill would later admit that meeting Epstein was a huge mistake, but by then, his association with a convicted sex offender had already become a major crack in their marriage, and a major source of fear and anger for Melinda. While all this was unfolding, she tried to keep focusing on her work. In April 2019, she published her book, Moment of Lift, which told stories from her travels and made a strong case for lifting up women as the fastest way to lift up families and societies. On the surface, the book read like a confident call for equality. Behind the scenes, she was dealing with panic, nightmares, and a sense that the life she had built around her husband was no longer stable. Writing the book forced her to revisit painful memories of being one of the few women in male-heavy spaces, and to confront how much of herself she had set aside to support Bill and the foundation. Later that same year, during a trip to New Mexico, the pressure finally broke through. Friends say Melinda suffered what felt like a vivid nightmare while awake, a kind of breakdown that showed just how deep the damage had gone. When she returned from New Mexico in late 2019, she began serious divorce talks. She and Bill quietly separated while lawyers and advisors worked behind the scenes. It would not become public until May 2021, but from that point on, she knew the marriage was ending. The public announcement in May 2021 stunned the world. After 27 years of marriage and 3 children, Bill and Melinda Gates declared that their relationship was irretrievably broken. Reports later revealed that she had already consulted divorce attorneys back in October 2019 after more stories about Bill's meetings with Epstein surfaced. The settlement would become one of the largest in history. Melinda is believed to have received assets worth around $76 billion, putting the split among the most expensive divorces ever recorded. In August 2021, the divorce was finalized. Soon after, Melinda pledged $1 billion over 2 years for women's health and empowerment, signaling that she would use her independence and wealth to push even harder for the causes she cared about. In interviews, Melinda began speaking more openly about the emotional cost of her marriage. She talked about Bill's infidelities, including the affair with a Microsoft employee that triggered the board investigation, and how those betrayals fueled panic attacks and nightmares. She described losing her sense of self for more than a decade, while standing beside one of the most powerful men in the world and carrying the responsibilities of the foundation. Therapy helped her slowly rebuild her identity and respond to what had happened without betraying her own values. Her honesty resonated with many women who saw their own stories, on a smaller scale, in her words. Epstein remained the final straw in many people's minds. Melinda repeated in later interviews that his presence in their lives was a turning point. She had warned Bill early, and when he continued to meet with Epstein, even after the financier's death in 2019, it signaled to her that they did not share the same boundaries or the same judgment. She saw his association with a known abuser as something she could not accept. After the divorce, Bill publicly called the relationship with Epstein a substantial error in judgment, while Melinda focused more on supporting victims and advocating for accountability. In May 2024, another break became official. Melinda stepped down from the Gates Foundation, leaving Bill as sole chair. For more than 20 years, she had helped build and guide the institution that carried both their names. Now she was walking away from that shared platform to concentrate fully on her own path. She promised to direct at least $1 billion over 2 years into projects focused on women and girls, and said that leaving the foundation would let her align her time and resources more directly with her personal mission. Her departure raised questions about the future of the foundation, and also highlighted how few women had ever held that kind of power in global philanthropy. After the divorce, Melinda began to share small glimpses of her new life. She spoke about being in a very happy relationship and about feeling more at peace. She invested more through pivotal ventures, backed new initiatives, and kept returning to the same central theme. When women have power, families, communities, and economies all benefit. Her story became less about being the wife of a famous founder and more about a woman who rebuilt herself after a public and private storm. By the mid-2020s, her financial picture remained enormous, with an estimated net worth near $15.2 billion. A large share of that was committed, directly or indirectly, to solving deep problems that affect women and girls. Through pivotal ventures, she had put hundreds of millions into more than 150 organizations. These ranged from companies in technology and finance to media projects and political efforts aimed at increasing women's representation and changing caregiving policies. Her money was also present in more specific places on the map. In Pakistan, for example, the Gates Foundation helped finance a €55 million concessional loan in December 2023, which included a €20 million principal buy-down from the foundation to support national health institutions and the Pakistan Polio Eradication Initiative. That money strengthened immunization efforts, paid and trained female health workers, and advanced disease tracking systems. It also inspired local programs that used her model of investing in women-centered projects, including fintech services for women who wanted more control over their finances. In 2025, Melinda's voice became even more personal. She released a memoir titled The Next Day in April of that year. In it, she looked back on her college years, her entry into technology, her time at Microsoft, motherhood, the loss of a close friend, and the long unraveling of her marriage. She wrote plainly that the divorce was necessary because honesty and trust had broken down. She described intimacy as impossible when dishonesty sits in the middle of a relationship. She wrote about panic attacks and nightmares and how therapy taught her to respond to betrayal without betraying herself. She also revealed that the separation played out in secret for more than a year before the world knew anything. Around the same time, she went on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and spoke directly to millions of viewers. In that April 2025 interview, she said she had to leave the marriage because there was not enough honesty to sustain real trust. She explained how therapy had helped her keep her integrity and confirmed that she was now in a pretty great relationship. Watching her talk, people saw a woman who had lived inside one of the most high-profile partnerships in the world and then walked away to define herself on her own terms.